𝗧𝗵𝗲, founder of the Acclivity, your Strategist is In podcast, which offers clear, candid perspectives on the complex realities of working in higher education today, from navigating institutional change to advancing equity and leading with intention. Each episode speaks to professionals across the academic spectrum, faculty, staff, and administrators alike. Smart, grounded insight for all the people who move institutions forward. There's a strange moment that happens mid-semester. The air changes, the light tilts, the inbox fills up, and the deadlines multiply. Something's in us. The part that remembers every time we've ever excelled starts whispering, "Do it again, be impressive again, don't let anyone see you slow down." That's what I call the ghost of achievement. And every year around this time, when the leaf starts to fall, it gets louder. Today's episode is called Haunted, Rebellious, Free, the Season of Letting Go. It's about the haunting of success, the quiet rebellion of enough, and the mercy of release. Before we start, if you want to go deeper, download the reflection guide linked in the show notes. Pause anytime to write or simply notice what stirs in you. Let this one move slowly, because sometimes excellence doesn't feel like triumph. It really feels like captivity. And we're going to try to unpack some of that today. When I was a new faculty member, somebody told me the reward for good work is more work. I laughed because I thought it was a joke, but a lot of you all know what I'm talking about. It's not a joke. You do something well and suddenly you become that person, right? The reliable one, the fixer, the one who never drops the ball. And even when you try to rest, the ghost of your own reputations follow you into the quiet. So here you hear, do more, be more, show up, don't let them see you slow down. A good example is Dr. Singh, who used to joke that her Google Scholar page had more stamina than she did. After her first big award, she started waking up every morning to citation alerts. Somewhere along the way, she actually forgot how to do research that wasn't strategic. She wasn't looking for fun stuff. She was just moving, moving, moving. She said, "I'm haunted by the version of me who had something to prove." She's the one they still want, and I'm the one who's tired, right? I'm sure we can relate to that. So haunting is what happens when success outlives the joy, when the applause keeps echoing long after you've left the stage. What part of you is still performing for ghost? Maybe you've been praised for being resilient, productive, brilliant, but what would it mean to honor the version of you who earned that praise without obeying those ghosts anymore? Pause for a moment and notice your body. Tightness, warmth, numbness. What's your body telling you about what it's tired of carrying? One dean that I worked with confided that after 10 years in leadership, she no longer knew who she was without a calendar full of meetings. She said, "People think I love power, but the truth is I'm scared of what happens when I stop being needed." Wow, that really, we had to sit with that for a moment. So it's not the ghost of failure that follows us. It's the ghost of who we were when we were praised or who we are when we're needed, and it continues to follow us. I would also offer that it also sort of follows us into our personal lives as well. More about that another time. So sometimes to get free, you have to stop feeding them. Stop feeding those ghosts. So let's talk about rebellion, the quiet kind. The rebellion that happens when you decide not to answer an email at midnight or, you know, 4 a.m. or whatever the bewitching hour is. When you stop treating exhaustion like evidence of commitment, when you say, this is enough, and I'm going to go a little bit farther and say, I am enough. One of my clients, a mid-career professional, showed me her calendar. She had drawn a red circle around Friday. She said, I don't schedule anything then, not even coffee. And she called it radical rest. At first, her colleagues rolled their eyes. After a few months, three of them quietly asked her how she did it. Now, some of you may be familiar with this concept of radical rest, and I would highly recommend that you look into it further. But for now, let's just, take some small steps. And maybe that is just a day, or maybe an hour, or a block of time where you schedule nothing, right? And see what that feels like. In the beginning, it's probably going to feel a bit uncomfortable, but essentially that's how rebellion spreads, one boundary at a time, one red circle at a time. Enough isn't mediocrity, it is a moral stance. And I think that a lot of times, many of us feel as though because we've had to do so much for so long and be more, we've been told we have to do more to prove. And we all know the saying about being, X times better than the other group, just to be in the room. And I don't doubt that. And it's even been true for me as well. But I think we really have to re-examine what it's like to really do what's required at a level of excellence, but really try to balance overdoing it, right? Because we have overdone it for so long that it seems like a standard. So the radical resilience, the rest, the boundaries, again, it's purposeful. So the myth of excellence says your worth is tied to output, right? The rebellion of enough says your worth was never up for negotiation. You belong, you're worthy, you got the job, you got the position, you've proven yourself time and time again, but let's try to really sit with that for a little while. So as we think about sitting with that, I would like for you to write or reflect where you quietly rebel right now. What values are you protecting when you do? And, if you're not yet doing that, again, small steps, right? So let's breathe in the word enough. What happens in your body? What is that response trying to tell you? And feel free to do that exercise, a couple times during the day. Just start with once and let's see what happens. So remember, enough is not the end of ambition. It's where ambition comes home to rest. And rest is restorative. That is very important. A senior scholar once told me she realized she'd been teaching the wrong lesson. She said, I kept telling my students to dream bigger, go bigger, be bigger. We've all heard go bigger, but go home, right? When really what they needed was the permission to stop. Wow. And that line stayed with me because I had never heard that before. Again, go bigger, be home, go home, be bigger, bolder, right? But who's ever told us that it's okay to stop? Permission to stop. It sounds radical, doesn't it? But it might be the most generous form of leadership there is. I'm thinking about even how this relates to boundaries. And remember, I was referring to the email at, the bewitching hour earlier. Well, wouldn't it be okay if, as a leader, you said to your faculty, your staff, whomever, hey, it's okay to not answer emails between this time and that time, right? Just because I'm sending them at that time doesn't mean you have to be compelled to respond at that time. Have some red circles around starting and stopping time. And again, I know this is not the easiest thing to do because with technology, we feel like we're always on. It's not just the proverbial 9 to 5 where we go to the office and we go home, but it could be, right? What if your working hours were your working hours and then your off work hours were your off work hours? I know it sounds radical, but again, please believe me, it's not. We just have to move into that direction. So, we're in autumn, right? And autumn has always felt very honest to me. It does not fake vitality. It knows when to release. Trees don't cling to their leaves out of guilt or nostalgia. They let go because it's time. And I love this about nature, right? So there are some beautiful trees that line the street where I live. And I've got a wonderful Italian pine in my backyard. And so it's interesting to see how the cycle of nature happens, and particularly around this time of year when we see the trees letting go of their leaves. Now, what I didn't always realize about this, and learned about it, was that the trees release the leaves because they're kind of going inward. They know that it's the time of year where they don't need these extra things on them to continue through their cycle. So they essentially shake them off because it's just weighing them down. It's taking up excess energy that they don't need. And they also know that they'll get more, right? So think about that. Wouldn't this be the great time to reflect and know like what to let go of, not to hold on to because of guilt or nostalgia? Realize when it's time to let go because it just is time. A professor I know built her identity around being the bridge builder and the connector, right? Committees, collaborations, mentoring everyone. One day she realized she become so busy connecting others that she essentially had lost the connection to herself. So she resigned from half of her committees, which I would say was pretty bold, right? She dropped one leadership role and then decided to take a sabbatical to write quietly. She said it felt like betrayal, but it was actually becoming. And so while I know that it's not always easy to do something like this, in this case, I would say it was radical because radical action was needed. But there's a certain strategy about stepping back from things. And it doesn't always have to be as stark as what she did, but certainly figuring out how to pull yourself back and be thoughtful about what replaces that time and space is important. So again, letting go can feel like failure until it starts to feel like freedom. And a lot of this, if you've been listening to me for a while or if you're new, you know that I love to reframe things, right? So yeah, it can feel a little awkward in the beginning, like, oh, I really said I was going to do this, and now that I haven't done it, I feel like a failure, or they're going to see me as a failure. But it's okay. Believe me, there are ways in which you can kind of pull back that give grace to yourself and also allow you to fulfill your commitments. So let's think about this now. What are you being invited to release? Just go inward. Again, where in your body do you feel the tug to let go? And I know if you really sit with yourself for a while, there are things that you know that you have been kind of, you know, itching to get rid of, right? Some of it may be a low push, and then some of it's just a screaming, like, get me out of here. And then since we're in this fall season of letting go, let's think about, how you can do that. What might return once you set that thing down? Maybe some more energy, maybe some creativity, maybe some joy. Again, letting go isn't quitting, it's the beginning of honesty. Because how many times have you said to yourself, or know someone who said to themselves, and I raise my hand to this because I've said to myself in the past, like, I just have too much going on. Or somebody would look at what I'm doing and they're like, how is this humanly possible? Well, it's not. And so once we own that, we can really start to think about the commitments and overcommitments, even why we're saying yes to these things. Some of them are contractual, I know, but then some of them are because in the beginning of this podcast, we talked about, okay, you're the go-to person. Why? Because you're going to get it done and you're not going to say no, right? In the reverse order. You're not going to say no, and you're going to get it done. So saying yes to everything is not a smart strategy. You're going to get burnt out. You may start to resent some things. You're definitely not going to enjoy your job. So let's think about how we can let go. Doesn't have to be overnight, but start to think about it. So, what small ritual could mark this release for you? I don't know, maybe a celebration, maybe something small. There's plenty of things we could think about, but of course, think about what's best for you. So here we are in the season of letting go. Haunted, yes. Rebellious, maybe. But finally free enough to see that excellence was never meant to be a cage. You've been writing all along, so look back over what you noticed. What awareness feels most alive? What will you carry forward gently into the rest of this year? Take one last breath, not to start over, but just to be soft with yourself and give yourself some grace, right? You don't have to burn down your life to begin again. Sometimes it's enough to set down what's just too heavy. So, thanks again for listening and for listening inward. Find the reflection guide in the show notes before and share this episode with someone who might be ready to exhale. I am Dr. 𝗂𝘶𝗵𝗲, your academic career advancement coach. Thank you again for joining me.